Do you have a blueprint for your wealth journey? Think about that for a second. Hi, this is George Antone here, and this is part 3 of our series. We're talking about clarity around your wealth journey. So in part 1, we covered creating clarity around your wealth journey. In part 2, we talked about the 3 steps to achieve clarity. In this training, what we're going to talk about is the whole blueprint of your wealth journey. We're going to talk about phase 2 as well. So this blueprint is the same exact blueprint our members are using. So go ahead and download that. You're going to see a one-page PDF right below this video in the show notes. Download that. I'm going to walk you through the exact same blueprint our members are going through. So buckle up and let's dive in. So this is the Genius Mandala that we use with our members. So let me walk you through it. So again, make sure you watch part 1 and part 2 if you haven't done so. So if you remember in part 2, we talked about phase 1, choose your destination, phase 2, develop your plan, and phase 3, follow your path. And in the last training, we talked about phase 1, which is your lifestyle. What's the passive income you need to support the lifestyle, your dream lifestyle that you're looking for? Then what is the gap in step 3 from where you're at to where you want to get to in terms of passive income? And then make a commitment to yourself that you're going to focus on this journey. Now, commitment simply means commit to by allocating the resources, the time, the time to learn, the time to implement all of that stuff. Okay. And so that's what we talked about in phase 1. Now we're going to talk about phase 2, which is develop your plan. Now this is where it gets really interesting. In phase 2, you start with steps. Remember, every phase is 4 steps. Step 5 is principles, asset, strategy, and plan. So in principles, you want to anchor all your strategies, everything you do based on wealth principles. Now, everything on this channel, a lot of things are based on wealth principles. Wealth principles are the core truths, the core facts that you're going to use to build your strategies. The reason is, this is where most investors fail. They base everything on hearsay. They hear their friend is doing real estate or crypto or whatever it is, and they jump into it not knowing that all that's happening is they're just passing on wrong information. When you have the foundation, okay, the principles to anchor, it's like building a building on rock solid, rock. You're not building it on sand. This is where most people believe they're doing things right, but they're not. This is why we want you to watch the Wealth Principles Level 1 on this channel, because it changes everything. And in our training, we go into a lot more detail because this changes your trajectory of everything you know. Once you are aware of the principles, and I'll tell you, sometimes just one principle, wealth principle, can change your whole worldview about investing. And it gives you a lot of confidence and clarity around what you're doing because of this one thing. It's based on math. Unfortunately, like I said, most investors out there are not using wealth principles. So once you start anchoring your lessons and your strategies on wealth principles, you can move on to assets. The assets is, you're looking now at where are you financially with your assets. You look at your balance sheet, your financial statements, and ask yourself, where am I missing? So one of the things we show you is how do you optimize your balance sheet? So let me expand on that for a second, and I'll do another video on that very soon. You have to understand that the income statement, your financial statements, your income statement is there like fuel to the engine, and the engine is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is what moves you along on your wealth journey. Again, I'm going to make a whole video on that at some point. Now that you understand how your financial statements work and how to use it correctly and optimize your balance sheet and your income statement, you are now ready to talk about strategies. So you look at what you have, where you want to get to in terms of balance sheet, and now you're ready for the strategy. The strategy is what actually fills the gap. It's how do you go from where you're at to where you want to get to in terms of passive income by looking at your financials. Okay. So strategy fills your balance sheet correctly and your income statement, especially your balance sheet, with the right assets in the right sequence. And this is critical. So here's what a lot of people do. They just say, I'm going to get into real estate, or I'm going to get into whatever. That's strategy, folks. The problem is you're making wrong decisions about the strategy. And what I mean by that isn't real estate or stocks. These are all different. The thing is the underlying approach. So there's what's called the asset first approach and the finance first approach. Make sure you watch the different videos on this channel, because an asset first approach is where everyone goes to, most investors, and they're completely off because they think it's an asset, some asset out there, whether it's real estate, crypto, stocks, it doesn't matter, that's going to sort of save them. That is not the case. It is a finance first approach, which is a completely different approach to building wealth. So let me give you an example. A fish doesn't know it's in water until it is out of the water, and it then recognizes the world it's in. Most investors are in what's called the asset first approach. They don't realize there's something called the finance first approach that is completely 180 degrees different than what they're used to. And so that's part of the problem. And this comes from wealth principles. Once you understand, anchor everything in wealth principles, you understand how your strategy works. It changes completely. Once you have the strategy in place, the strategy helps you develop your step-by-step plan. So a strategy is very different than plan. A plan is the output, comes from the strategy. Okay? Once you have that, again, this phase 2 is where most investors fail. By the way, if you ever are really curious about how we help our members, make sure you register for one of our upcoming events, because we walk you through some of this stuff here at the event. Okay? Make sure you get that. So once you have your plan, now you have a step-by-step process outline to move into phase 3 to follow the steps. Okay, and I'll cover that in the next video. So for now, hopefully this is helpful. Now you see the whole wealth journey. It is 3 phases. Every phase is 4 steps. And we just covered phase 2, develop your plan. And again, make sure you watch the other training videos to understand the wealth principles here. And if you want to get it all in one shot, make sure you register for one of our upcoming events, because we cover some of that here and strategy as well in our event. Okay. So with that, we're going to continue this in part 4.